Hi everybody, welcome to Real Marriage. I'm Andy Gillis. This is my beautiful co-host, Katy Gillis. And Katy and I, we've dedicated half of our married life to mentoring, growing our relationship, and also mentoring others. We do it through life experiences and also a lot of material that we've gained over those mentoring years and training that we've received as well.
Yeah. Andy and I are super, super blessed to have all that awesome training and knowledge on how to create a better marriage for ourselves well as our couples. And we've seen the philosophies and the little strategies and systems that we share here in Real Marriage transform people's marriages for the better. And so we're so excited to be sharing what we love so much with you. And we are assuming that you're probably here because you, just like us, we want to build a healthier, happier relationship with our spouse. No matter what season we're in, it's always a perfect time to grow together, right? So that's probably why you're here. So welcome.
So on to conflict resolution, to the main topic tonight.
Yes.
And the first thing about conflict is we all have conflict, and we all know what conflict is. But the cool thing is that most conflicts come from areas where you are different with your spouse. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. You're just different people. So, and the important thing to do is to celebrate those differences, So instead of them becoming a complete battleground.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about tonight and next week on how we can not make those differences a battleground and causing conflicts.
Yeah.
So God we always like to point back to God's truth. And what he says in Romans chapter 12, verse 6 is we have different gifts according to the grace that was given to us. So that's great. We are made to be different. We're supposed to be different. We have, like Katy likes to say, we have commonalities, but we are two totally different people.
I feel like in our relationship, we are such a great team. We're such a great partnership because of our differences. And then, but at the same time, the times when I've been most frustrated with Andy is whenever I feel like he doesn't understand how I'm feeling because he's just thinking about it differently or he's just wired differently.
Right.
And so that's what we're here tonight to share, is that it's okay to feel completely different than your spouse because you probably are. And that it's just taking those differences and not using them as a battleground. Usually the problems that Andy and I are fighting over or having a disagreement over are not the problem. It's how we're handling the situation. How the problems are handled is more important than the problem itself whenever you are coming to your spouse with a conflict. It's also how do you handle your emotions. Right. So whenever you and your spouse are about to get a little fight on, how do you view your spouse?
Right.
How do you feel about your spouse? And how do you feel about just things in general? That also plays a huge part in how is this conflict resolution going to go down, if it's going to be resolved at all.
That's right. And I love that one where you if you don't mind if I jump in, is that I like the emotional part because when it comes to conflict, emotions are usually high.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine taking a step back.
Right.
And focusing on, do I feel like I want to, totally bombard my spouse with just whatever word comes out? It's just, I love that.
And sometimes, you're that personality, how you tend to deal with conflict is you love to get in there and fight. It's almost like you feed off the fight. And so we have some words for you too.
Yeah.
But
or do you avoid them at all costs?
Right. So it's basically how you communicate whenever you're under stress. It determines the quality of your relationship and what's going to go down when you guys are going to have a conflict or you're in conflict.
That's right. So at this time, we like to point to really awesome scripture in the Bible. And, Katy and I, we study the Bible, and we want to bring the information that we study in the Bible and that we read in the Bible and make it applicable to our marriage and to your marriage.
I just found it super helpful. Whenever you're dealing with relationships, the Bible is nothing but full of great philosophy and truths, and so we want to share that whenever we can.
All right, and this is a really good one we're going to break down for you right now, starting in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, and it reads,
Yes.
In your anger, do not sin. Well, that comes back to talking about the emotional part. Don't be angry. Don't sin based on your anger.
Don't act at all, really, because the problems happen whenever we act through our emotions and we don't think first.
Right. And the next one I really love. It says, do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. So that means you had an argument at 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock, and now you're on edge. Now you don't talk, you know, whatever the case may be, and you go to bed. I roll over to my side, Katie rolls over to her side of the bed, and we go to sleep, and we pick it up tomorrow. Yeah. Or we don't talk to each other the next day. That's happened before. You know, a lot of our couples, that they may go days without really finally saying, let's talk about this.
And when the devil gets the foothold, that's really when the barrier becomes built between each other. It's when he's like literally laughing, like, this is what I wanted. I wanted them to feel completely isolated from each other. I want them to not feel like a team anymore. I want them to feel like enemies. So I love that point, is to remember who the enemy really is, and it's never your spouse.
That's
in
right,
a marriage that has goodwill towards one another.
I know, that's such a great point, because the devil can get a foothold so much easier when you're by yourself, when you're alone.
Even if you're just on your side of the bed with like a pillow in between you two.
That's right.
The pillow.
So, and finally, do not let any unwholesome talk come from your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs.
Crazy.
That it may benefit those who listen. So, I know we're talking about conflict here. We're talking about resolving conflict, but, you know, you still got to build each other up. You know, there are moments where I'm like, I bite my tongue. And other people, you bite your tongue because you know what you're going to say is not helpful. It's not uplifting that person. It's not going to solve the conflict. It's only going to make things worse, especially if you're a winner. If you want to go in, you want to dominate and win the argument. That's your main goal. It's not to make the conflict go away or to become, you know, solve the problem on the other side. So.
Yeah. And that's stopping to listen to somebody else, but also to see your words as uplifting and never use your words. Try very hard to not use your words to bring someone else down. I mean, that's crazy. That's in the Bible. Essentially, you know, don't, you know, use your words only for building others up. What if that was our core mission? What if that was all you got from this video, is that from now on, I'm going to do my very best to make sure that every word that comes out of my mouth does not put anybody down, even by accident. It only uplifts and builds the other person. How crazy would that be if that was?
You'd have a lot less conflicts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll see on your worksheet that I'm not going to go over all of it because it's 2 pages long, but it's awesome. And there are 5 different ways that people tend to deal with conflict. And I'm not going to go into the complete description. I just want to tell you the 5 ways so that you can kind of, as I share, just kind of sit and think, is this me? Does this sound like me? Yeah. Or does this sound like my partner? Here are the 5 ways that people tend to deal with conflict. The first one is passive withdrawn. They withdraw themselves whenever there's conflict. They hide away in their shell. Then there's blame, dominate, winner. This person likes to point blame at other people, dominate the conversation, and win. Yeah. And there's a whole description on what each of these are. I'm just giving you the topic.
I really hope you're both not that one.
Right? If you're both a dominant, no, that'd be bad. Yeah. And then the third type of how people tend to deal with conflict is compliant, yielding, and then resentful, because they complied and they yielded, and then they kind of take it,
I shouldn't have done that.
I've given so much to this relationship, and look now what they have done to me. The fourth one is the victim, the whiner. Everything is always done to this person, and they tend to whine a lot about it. And then the fifth type is of how people tend to deal with conflict is generalized confusion and hopelessness. Now, this is quite sad, because this person doesn't even want to deal with conflict because they see, well, what's the point? I don't see any hope in this relationship. I don't see any purpose to having a conflict at all. And so that's that fifth type. Now, Now, in your couple worksheet, in your worksheet for this, you'll see that not only is there a really long description for each of the types, there is a couple discussion, just like we have in all of our worksheets, where we have questions for you guys after you know what type you are. You can be between 1 and 2 types, or you can be a solid 1, like if you know you're a winner, you know you're a whiner, whatnot. And then they have this wonderful couple discussion where you can really ask those questions, like, what are your main differences with you and your partner?
Right.
And then how could you see these differences causing a problem? Or have you seen them cause a problem in your relationship? And it's just that awareness where you can come together and really know each other better.
That's right.
So that's the worksheet. Get that worksheet. You're going to want to put it in your marriage toolkit. Though I shared the 5 ways that people tend to deal with conflict, and I use those words to try to help you realize, and understand that, these are not labels. We don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, I'm such a whiner. Oh my gosh, my husband is such a withdrawer. You really don't want to put those labels on yourself. This is strictly for awareness purposes, so that remember, we want to remove the barriers, but we want you, when you're sitting down and you're about to have, or standing up, and you're about to have a conflict, maybe you'll remember, my husband typically does this and this, because this is how he deals with conflict.
Right.
So maybe I'm not going to say that so harshly. Or maybe I shouldn't do it this way. And vice versa. You want to use this information to draw closer as a couple and be more thoughtful of the other person when conflict arises, because guess what? Just like Andy said in the very beginning, not only do we all know what conflict is, every single relationship has already dealt with it and will deal with it. And so this will just help you do it better.
That's right. So the cool thing is that resolving conflict is normal.
Yeah.
And the cool thing, it leads to change. It helps you grow. And like Katie said, it's awareness.
And how many times have you gone through a relationship or been in a place where you feel like you have not resolved something? You feel like this door has not been closed, or you haven't felt that freedom that, this has been done, this has been settled. That's like an open wound. It's not good. You want to resolve the conflicts you have.
That's right. So I have 3, I would call them jaw-dropping questions before you start a conflict or start to resolve a conflict. And like I said, they're jaw-dropping. I love them. The first one is, what is my contribution to the conflict? What am I contributing to this conflict? How did this happen? What role did I play in this conflict? It's a good thing to say, because you want to think about that, because, well, if you don't, you may blame your spouse.
Or blame them more.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, wait a second, that was me, my bad. And then you got to come back and be like, kind of fall on the sword, as they say.
Yes.
No, that was me. And that's going to be hard to do, and you may not do it because, especially if you're a winner, I'm not going to go back on that. I'm not going to say that I was wrong. Are you crazy? No.
Exactly.
The next one is my favorite. Am I calm enough to discuss this? Am I too angry to go and try to resolve a conflict?
Yes.
It's one thing to have a conflict, but to go in and resolve it, I'm going to come in with that iron fist.
Or you're going to come in crying, and you could come in crying and whining. I mean, it's really about...
to make the other person feel sorry for you.
Manipulation can happen. So you want to come in, you really do want to come in with no emotions besides just, a goal to get closer as a couple. That's what you want when you come into conflict resolution.
And this one, another one. This is the last one. Do I want to understand the other person as much as I want to be understood? Well, of course, our natural instinct is to want to be understood. We talked about that. We went over communication and assertiveness and active listening. We want to be understood, but if we want to resolve the conflict, we got to want to understand them. And we want them to be felt understood as well.
I mean, how many times have we had an argument, and you probably as well, had an argument with somebody, but neither of you were willing to bend. Neither of you cared really what the other person had to feel. You really just wanted to prove a point, or be better, or win, or maybe accomplish what it is you wanted to accomplish. Sometimes, whenever we come into a conflict, I have to ask myself, am I just being straight up selfish here? I mean, because sometimes we're here, and my goal is just, I just want as much as I can get. And that's
Raise your hand if you've done that. A thumbs up if you've done that.
Don't come into the
I saw that.
Don't come into the conversation thinking, how much can I get out of this? That's
right.
That's not even serving the other person. So
that's right. So today was all about awareness. So and next week is really cool. We're going to take you through the 10 steps to resolving conflict.
Yes. Now that you know.
That's right. And what to do if you're the one that has an issue with somebody, and then also how you react if somebody else has a conflict with you.
So next week is going to be so crucial because now that you have your worksheet, and once we're done here in the video, I hope that you will print your worksheet off or download it and figure out how you tend to deal. And you can even do that same thing with your spouse. You're going to read these through and you're like, oh, he is so this. Or you'll be reading it through if you're the man, you're like, oh, this is my wife. And you know, the times Andy and I have done this, I'm like, yeah, that's me.
That's right.
You know me. But once you have that awareness, come back next week and we're going to talk about now, well, what do you do whenever you're in the middle of it all and, you know, you're still going to fight.
That's right.
It's just how to do it well, how to fight well. Remember, that's what this is all about, how to fight well.
That's right. So we talk to say identify and apply. So today is identifying how to resolve a conflict, and next week we're going to be talking about how to apply it. If you find this is helpful to somebody else, go ahead and share it.
Share it, yes.
Share it with somebody.
That too. They can have the worksheets.
That's right. They can get the worksheet. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Like us on Facebook, or you can email us at realmarriagementors@gmail.com, and that's mentors with an S. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye-bye.